Welcome to WYCD Wicked, that stands for What You Can Do. Wow, what a marathon. Did anybody else jump into the Valley Labor Report? That was a heck of a thing. AC, I saw you there. We were hanging out all night. Pinkerbell, you too. I saw a whole bunch of folks over there. If I missed you, that was my bad. I was in and out because it was a long stream. They just did a 32-hour stream, both in support of, symbolically, in support of a 32-hour work week. And also, quite materially, in support of striking workers. Oh, all that time I had, and I still couldn't get non-crazy hair. I need to go to a barber. Boy. Anyway, good lads. If you get a chance, go check it out. But we have our own cause I'd like to talk about today. Let me see if I can pull it up. Oh, nope. Well, maybe. Oh, well, let's just use our mouth work. Gulf Coast Grit let me know that we got someone in the community in need of assistance. There's a gal named Dorothy, a.k.a. Dee Dee. Her house just burned down. If you're feeling charitable, go toss a couple bucks into her GoFundMe account. She's got a very humble request. She's trying to get together $2,000 to rebuild her life. That's not a terribly ambitious goal, I think. I think that's very doable with a community of internet folks. And guess what? She started this 3 days ago. She's already got $1,200 bucks. So if you've got a $5 or a $10 or even a $15, because you have a functioning, if not totally accurate, counterfeit machine, good. Toss it her way, because you'd be doing some good in the world. Meanwhile, for the purposes of our show tonight, all I want to do is go over a fellow we've been talking about. There's been some confusion over who is Owen Morgan, this telltale atheist that I've mentioned a couple of times. Somebody else mentioned them as well. I thought I would share with you all some of the earliest videos of his that I saw. The quality goes down significantly because this is when he was just starting out on his podcasting journey. But nonetheless, it's really really fun. I screwed up these slides, so let me try recording this a little differently. Hey, you know what? Let me say hi to y'all first. Gulf Coast Grit, there you are. Good to see you. Amanda Patton, hello. I think Jake's hair looks nice at this length. Yeah, I'm going for local beloved madman, if there's such a thing. The anti-corporatist, the eat 'em up Tigers guy. I miss him. The anti-corporatist, I'll have to check the cushions of my couch. I already donated, good God, $250 to the Valley Labor Report. Now, I mean, look, I think it's mighty big of you to even consider it. But once you've given $250 to a good cause on the sort of budgets we're dealing with, I would say make sure you don't become the next good cause that needs donating to. You've done your piece. You've done your bit. So don't worry about it. You are helping by being here. And $250 is awful damn generous. So you're good, man. But do consider sharing that pinned link. Maybe somebody feels like helping somebody else. Just a total stranger. Why not? Why not? Public utility. Hello, fellow wicked earthlings. Assemble. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Good to see you, public utility. Well, folks, let's look at Owen Morgan. I want to talk about this fella. I like him. And to be honest, this is probably good intro stuff. Very hard for me to switch to recording mode. Let's take a look at Owen Morgan. As I was telling the Wicked Senate here, if you're watching in the house, this is an older video. It's one of the first ones I recall having seen of Owen Morgan. And he's a fellow we've been talking about quite extensively. What I enjoy about him is an insight into the inner workings of a very large section of the United States. Whether it should or should not be, the fact is, when the United States moves, the world flinches with good cause. Because often we act irrationally. Often we act cruelly. And it makes even those of us that live here often wonder why. I have gained, at least I think I've gained, a lot better understanding of how and why this country moves the way it does through listening to what Owen Morgan has to say. A quick piece of background for you. In case you are unfamiliar, he was raised as a Jehovah's Witness. And when he was 18, he was kicked out. Had doubts already, and that led to problems in the community. And I think he was then caught smoking. That grievous sin for an 18-year-old. That they kicked him out. And the problem is, it's not just like, not like they said, oh, you can't come to church next Sunday unless you apologize. No, his mother doesn't speak to him. He lost his family. It was a traumatic experience. He became a drug addict, and his life was essentially ruined at the age of 18 from the shunning. But he built himself back up, and free of that religion, which he found to be oppressive, and I have to say I would too. He was able to make something pretty darn impressive out of himself, and he now views the religion and other religious sects through the lens of somebody who has lived in and amongst one of the more extreme ones, and he offers insight into how and why they function the way they do. He also is, given the way he was raised, he's very familiar with the Bible, very familiar with the lore of all of it, and is able to clarify a lot of things that have more meaning to specific sects. You'll see what I mean, but here he is talking about one of Earth's most notorious con men before Donald Trump showed up in the headlines.
So Kent Hovind is a Christian extremist who is very charismatic and has done a good job of compiling Christian apologetics into one place. He also has some interesting things to say about Bible numerology, but I'll get into that later. So to summarize his story, in 1991, he got a doctorate degree from Patriot Bible University, which looks like this. It's basically a single building in the middle of nowhere, unaccredited. And his doctoral dissertation was just a big Christian apologetics paper. It was garbage. Anyways, he gets his PhD from Patriot Bible University in 91 and goes on to have 3 kids, one of which is a fairly famous...
And just, all right, clarity, Morgan has since changed his style. He used to do this thing where it was his drawings, and that was very popular on YouTube at the time. He would play that song the entire frickin' video. Nonetheless, they are good videos. Just to clarify though, so Kent Hovind, he calls himself Dr. Dino, and chooses to be referred Dino because he tells lies about dinosaurs. But he really stresses the doctor part. He asks people to call him doctor, or he pressures people into calling him doctor. To be clear, what Owen Morgan just said, that little building where he got his accreditation, doesn't count. He's not a real doctor. He went to Con Artist University. I suspect he could have not showed up. I suspect he could have just given them the money, and they would have printed out a slip of paper for him to say he was a doctor if he really tried. But that's coming out the gate, the kind of guy we're talking about.
Evangelizer himself, Eric Hovind. You can find Eric and Kent on YouTube, but Kent eventually becomes a notable preacher and goes around giving sermons in different cities and churches. I have to say, the dude speaks very well. I'm generally impressed by his public speaking skills. Let's take a listen.
And our goal is to strengthen your faith in God's Word. Now, this is not my wife. That's just a picture of her. We live in Pensacola, Florida. Been there 16 years, have 3 children, 1 of each. And I got them all married, and the dog died. Praise God, so I'm home free. And as we mentioned earlier, we have 4 grandkids so far, and that's God's reward for not killing your own kids when you thought about it. So we got a whole tribe, and they all live right around me and all work in our ministry. It's a real blessing to all have them right there. God's given us an amazing staff of people at Creation Science Evangelism. Our purpose is to get people saved. Okay? There are people that actually scoff at God's Word. How many have ever met one of those before? I deal with them all the time. I've had 83 debates now, have 4 more scheduled in the next 2 months. The scoffers that scoff at God's Word are out there, folks. The woods are full of them, okay? And it says they're going to walk after their own lust. The reason they scoff is because of their lust, not because of their science. They don't want God telling them what to do. And the scoffers are going to say, where's the promise of His coming? Since the fathers fell asleep, all things continue as they were from the beginning of the creation.
Yeah, I mostly just want to watch this because he goes into... I think if the video title fulfills its promise, he goes into 2 of the best or most interesting scam artists out there. But I do just want to point out something about Kent Hovind that has always made me smile somewhat mirthlessly. He's very sensitive about science. I'm tempted one of these days. Maybe even if I get just a little bit intoxicated tonight, I will do it as a super late night stream for the crickets. But I would very much like to sit down and just do a let's watch of a Kent Hovind debate. Like when he debated, I think he debated Aaron Ra once, and it was amazing. He's on Modern Day Debate quite frequently, if you know what that show is. It's sort of the kooks of the internet getting out and debating whatever. Usually the big things, the big mysteries of life. He is a master of the gish gavel. In fact, he is a debater who solely practices the gish gavel. He has a gish gallop. He has no other technique, and he is just so sensitive about the fact that science never seems to agree with the things he says are so. And a lot of other Christians have no issue with this. A lot of other Christians, when somebody says there really isn't evidence that there was once a flood as described in the Bible, they say, well, yeah, the flood is a metaphor. Or, oh, yeah, well, maybe instead of the whole world, it was just one region. Or they say, oh, yeah, well, the Bible isn't meant to be taken totally literally. We are meant to believe it, but we are not meant to use it as a predictor of things here in the mortal world. Like you shouldn't expect to find when you dig in a certain spot Jesus bones. The point being, it doesn't concern them because they understand the Bible and their religion generally as something which is separate from and higher than the mortal plane in which we inhabit. And they're fine with that, and the world's fine with that, and everybody gets on happily. But Kent Hovind, for some reason, is not. and unfortunately, he's just smart enough to understand what he does not understand, which is basically the entirety of a science class from like the 5th grade on, not quite in middle school, but definitely advanced elementary school. And the hilarity that extends from a guy with a fake doctorate trying to take Bible stories and explain why the world as we see it is actually the result of the literal interpretation of those Bible stories, which is often playing pretty fast and loose with things like, what is a year? People used to live for 900 years universally, did they? That used to be the standard lifespan. Oh, we used to have giants, did we? It gets pretty wacky pretty quickly.
For this they willingly.
But because he is so sensitive about it, his main thing, and listen for this as you listen to his ranting, his main thing is to be smug and arrogant about how right he is with his science facts, even though the opposite is true. He tries to make up for his lack of understanding with brass balls, and it's funny. I'll give him that. It is fun.
They are ignorant of. Willingly ignorant. In the Greek, that means.
But it does make me think this is yet another case of the con artist saying what they wish other people would say to them, I guess.
Ignorant of. Willingly ignorant. In the Greek, that means dumb on purpose.
And look at this. He brought props with him. That is entertaining. That holds people's attention.
Or like this mammoth backbone. This is colified from here, from South Florida. Mammoths are found all over the world. We got a mammoth jaw here, a lot of mammoth, is baby mammoth tusk. This is part of one that was frozen in Siberia, actually in northern, Siberia, northern Russia. What froze the mammoths? How can you freeze an elephant standing up with food still in his teeth?
So he's obviously a really good speaker. Charismatic, funny, personable. People like him. He draws you into the talk. It isn't boring. I remember being bored to tears by meetings at the Kingdom Hall. Occasionally we'd get a speaker on a Sunday that would draw you in, but this guy is a prodigy when it comes to public speaking, even when he's saying something stupid and f***ed up. Well, eventually he amasses a sizable wealth and decides to build something of a private community. What he claims was supposed to be Dinosaur Adventureland, a dinosaur and Bible-themed amusement park, where kids could go and get indoctrinated to their parents' heart's content. Well, according to him, he was taking money out of the bank in $10,000 increments and having people go pick up building materials from the hardware store. He says it was completely innocent, but that's actually called structuring. You have to report withdrawals over $10,000 to the bank for tax purposes, and he was taking out just under that amount every time. So the IRS starts asking him questions, trying to figure out what he was doing with the money, and he refused to tell them. He refuses to pay taxes, ever. Well, eventually his aversion to tax paying got him sentenced to 10 years in federal f***you-in-the-ass prison. But before he went to prison, he made a whole video seminar series on a bunch of Bible subjects. He attacked evolution, the Big Bang, talked about the logistics of the flood.
Okay, so guy ran a tax scam, got caught before he went to prison, did basically a bunch of things to generate money for himself while he was in there. He did a video seminar series and relied on his son to go out and sell them, basically. Let me just tell you this. In my own journey, when I formed the opinion that Republicans and specifically conservative Christians just have an expectation that the law should not, will not apply to them. And should not and will not because it did not. It was from learning about Kent Hovind, and he's not a bright. All right, he's not a genius by any means, but he's not dumb. You know what I mean? He's not educated. He chooses not to be educated. He invents lore himself, or he memorizes stories, but he's not like, there is no methodology. There is no deep understanding of science. But he should have understood that if you just choose not to pay taxes, eventually there will be problems. And he didn't. And the fact that he does genuinely seem to be just flabbergasted by the idea that he would ever be caught for doing the things he did. Just made me fascinated with that attitude. You know, how does somebody come to operate under these beliefs? Not how does somebody do something that has consequences, but how does somebody do something that has predictable consequences and then appear to be genuinely shocked by the consequences? And I don't think it's just a matter of he was aware of the risks, but he hadn't really felt what it would be like if those risks came to pass, you know. Like he was aware, you'll do a couple of years in jail for this on paper. I better not get caught. But not actually thinking about, or prison, but not actually thinking about what it's like to wake up in a cell, go to sleep in the same cell, and only be allowed out of that cell when somebody turns a key and lets you out. He is, however, now aware of what that reality is, but he is not even slightly repentant.
all kinds of other shit. He was instrumental in forming out a lot of modern Christian apologetics. Here's a list of some of the things he covers in his video series.
My name's Kent Hovind. I do seminars all over the world on creation, evolution, and dinosaurs. So far in this series, we've covered a whole variety of topics like how old is the Earth, where do dinosaurs fit in, what about cavemen, the lies in the textbooks, and the effects of the evolution teaching. Tonight we're going to talk about the flood.
So anyways, he gets out of jail in 2015 and goes right back to what he was doing from the start, proselytizing madly and trying to build Dinosaur Adventureland. Only this time he's doing his proselytizing on YouTube, and he's building Dinosaur Adventureland in a new location. This is where it gets interesting. So he's amassed this zealous following, and some people gifted a huge piece of property to him. So he moves out to this property with a large group of people where they start building houses and shit. They're all completely isolated from society with all they need. They have food shipments delivered to the compound by semi-truck every few weeks. But you know what scares me the most about this whole thing? His charisma. His ability to draw you in. Seriously. He could be a cult leader if he wanted, and I think that's where it's headed, if it's not there already. He's extremely smart. Even though I know his degree is complete bullshit, he knows what he's doing, and he does it very well. So let's take a look at one of his videos and discuss it.
Genesis 1 tells us there was a canopy of water above the creation. We mentioned this quite a bit on Seminar Part 2. And before the flood came, the people lived to be over 900. Probably one of the reasons is because of this canopy overhead.
Okay, so here he's...
I'm only going to interrupt. I'm going to interrupt less and less as this goes on. Only when I just can't help myself. And I have to say, I forgot until just now how Kent Hovind says the word water. He says it correctly for the record. The way the rest of us say it, water, with a D essentially, is wrong. It's wrong, and I know that, but it sounds right and it feels right. And water, that Kent Hovind says, activates some furious lobe in my brain that serves no purpose other than to make me see red at the pronunciation of water as water. But get ready to hear that word a whole lot. And now that I've pointed it out, welcome to hell.
He's talking about something called canopy theory. The idea is that before the flood, there was a giant canopy of water above the earth. Their claim is that that's where all the water for the flood came from. And since there was so much water above the earth, it added to the air pressure, and supposedly the extra oxygen and air pressure is what made things grow to be really, really big, like the dinosaurs, and to live really, really long like Noah and his family, supposedly 600 plus years old. Of course, this has no basis in reality. Completely ridiculous. They're taking something that sounds a little sciencey, even though it isn't science-based at all, and trying to make it fit. The idea that more oxygen makes things grow way bigger is bullshit. In some cases, sure, but in most cases, height is determined by bone and muscles' resistance to gravity. It's the same with trees. They will grow as long as they can pump water and nutrients to their leaves. Once gravity gets the best of their circulatory system, they stop growing. In that case, it's not about how much oxygen can reach their branches, it's about how many other nutrients can. Oxygen isn't the only factor here. If people had oxygen masks on 24/7, which provided 90% oxygen from birth to death, it wouldn't force some amazing tripling in size or lifespan. So when Kent went to jail, the rights to his seminars and ministry went to his son, Eric Hovind. When he got back out, Eric refused to come up off the rights. He'd taken his dad's empire and built upon it, and then refused to give it back when his dad returned. So that led...
Just to be clear, what he just said, Kent Hovind, con artist who specializes in conning the religious, really a despicable person. He plays with people's sincere religious beliefs and truly causes some people to waste their lives. His son is not much better than he is. His son was born into the scam, but he knows it's a scam because he runs it himself. You have to be aware of the fact that it's a scam in order to correctly operate it. It's like you have to know you're flying a plane to fly it correctly. You have to be aware of the wings and what it's doing to wind and all that to fly the thing. But the delicious bit of infighting here is that when when Kent got out of the clink, his con artist son, go figure, didn't return the con business that the now ex-con Hovind built up. Kent Hovind built up. Eric Hovind, by the way, still going strong. Although it's worth pointing out that both have said just they've done an incalculable amount of harm to people's lives.
To Kent going around giving more recorded talks in the same format that he had before, but I think he kind of lost a little bit of the flair he had from before.
He did.
Either way, now his son sells all his old products, like vitamin B17 as a cure for cancer, and his video seminars and stuff like that.
I know, Owen just brushes past that. When I say they do incalculable harm to people's lives, this is what I'm talking about. Don't take your cancer treatment. Don't do what the doctor says. No, you don't need that. All you need is belief in this thing that I say you should believe in, and these pills that I sell, these sugar pills that I sell. That's all you need. So give me your money and then go die. Salty Saturday. I'm allowed to be a little pissy. That's why I do not like these people, and you should not feel bad for Kent Hovind when his son steals his con out from under him.
Like that. Here's some of his son Eric Hovind's stuff.
Have you heard about the 10 mythical gods that bear a striking resemblance to our Savior, Jesus Christ?
There are some pagan myths that even predate the gospel.
Did the New Testament writers actually use these to create a fictitious Jesus?
Many would think so, but can this claim withstand a battleship attack?
Ooh, bring it on.
No. Please, look at this. This is terrible. The camera is all wobbly. They're cheesy as f***. This is bad. Really bad. Okay, now that we've gotten that horrific opening out of the way, let's hear his arguments.
He's claiming Jesus is a myth.
Well, especially at university, we are going to be groomed to doubt the historical existence of Christ and the reliability of Scripture, and instead encouraged to connect the dots between pagan mythology and Christ.
Now, what would you think if you heard that from a college professor?
College grooms people to doubt the existence of Jesus? What? Are they discouraging college education? What are people supposed to take away from this? They're demonizing higher education by saying this. They're making it out like college professors' goal is to turn you into an atheist. Literally, every single college professor I had was a Christian extremist, except one, and he was in the closet. I didn't discover he was an atheist until one day in a psychology class I heard him quote Richard Dawkins about saying that we shouldn't identify children by faith. We shouldn't say that's a Christian child or that's a Muslim child, because they aren't old enough to understand what that means in the first place, let alone be committed to a massive belief system like that. I looked at him and I said, was that Richard Dawkins who said that? At that moment, we both knew. So there's a little tip for you. If you want to find other atheists without outing yourself to them, try quoting famous atheists like Richard Dawkins or Christopher Hitchens. Okay, let's take a look at Ken Ham, the final piece to the unholy trinity.
And of course, if there is a great designer, a great creator behind the universe, the only way we would ultimately know who he is if he revealed himself to us. Actually, the Bible tells us that he revealed himself to us in the person of his Son, the Lord Jesus, who stepped into history to be the God-man, to die on a cross, be raised from the dead, and offer a free gift of salvation. And he reveals himself to us in the Word of God, the written Word.
Okay, so this guy is saying that the only way we would know who God is would be if he revealed himself to us. That sounds like such an empty, vapid statement. Okay, now we've established that. And then he goes on to say that God reveals himself through Jesus. But what about me? He hasn't revealed himself to me. I'd like to see him. If he was real and he was actually all-powerful, he would know exactly what it would take to convince me. But I guess he just doesn't want to right now, or something. But he did reveal himself to people in the desert 2,000 years ago. He felt like it then. And I'm really not sure what he's saying when he tells us that he reveals himself through the Bible. If I opened the Bible and God popped out, I'd be a lot more likely to believe it. But that doesn't happen. I'm just saying.
And you know, if the Bible really is God's word, we'd expect to find evidence consistent with what we read in the Bible, and we do. The fact that the Bible tells us God made...
So, sorry to freeze it on that nightmare creature, but, you know, I like to think about 20 days after Halloween still counts as spooky season. Notice what these con artists have in common. This specific grift is, how should I call it? It's like the Bible as science. That grift. This is what leads to flat earthers, by the way. This is the reason there is such an overlap between those communities is not because, like, well, if you're gullible, then no. It's because if you are a Bible literalist, if you sit down and you think, I shouldn't, if this is God's word, then I must take it literally. And you look outside and you note that the world runs on ideas about the way things are structured that are not supported by the Bible, such as, oh gosh, dinosaurs having lived millions and millions of years ago when the Bible says the earth is about 10,000 years old. If you do the Bible math the way these people do the Bible math. It requires, basically, all I'm saying is a different whole bunch of sciences. You need different geology. You need different astronomy. You need different physics in some cases. You need different history. You need so on and so forth and so forth. So these people take advantage of that. Ken Ham, Kent Hovind, Eric Hovind. They take advantage of that by doing pseudoscience and using the Gish Gallop and during debates, or just during when they're asked when they're asked by people that want to believe what they're selling, questions that they are unable to answer, which is most questions at public events. They Gish Gallop until, well, gotta move on. We got a talk we're gonna give in a few minutes here. Anyway, thanks for asking. Goodbye. They understand that there are they see similar opportunities for swindling. They have all tried to open some kind of a theme park to varying degrees of success. I have to say, Ken Ham knocked it out of the park with his Ark Adventure. That's the one that Mike Johnson helped get funded by swindling your tax dollars, as a matter of fact. But they're running very, very similar scams. And once you get a basic understanding of who these people are, you can just fill in the blanks with what they'll be up to next. Because it's very obvious. They will be trying to sell tickets to first the people that listen to their lectures, and then to all the people that listen to their lectures, his friends and family. And then they'll try to get a school to force religion down somebody else's throat, which will sell more tickets to yada yada. It's very, very sad, but fortunately, I think we're just about at the end of the era of these con people. And we'll go into it more at a later date why I think they're ending, but it has to do in large part with the existence of the internet.
Kinds of animals and plants after.
And the fact that I will say to note, yes, the internet helped them grow quite a bit, but it also gave them enough rope to hang themselves. And do note that Kent, this brand of scam, the Kent Hovind style, really started with those video cassette tapes. If you ask people who believe in, if you ask flat earthers and young earth creationists and blah, 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 about the tapes they watched growing up. I bet you'll find out that they watched some Kent Hovind, and I'll bet you find out that they went to the Ark Adventures for field trips in school. It's really sad, the generation of people that had their time on Earth wasted by these con artists.
Their kind is consistent with what we see in biology, that there are distinct
kind.
groups or kinds, like the dog kind, that doesn't change into a different kind, even though you can have variation
Please
within
address
a
this,
kind.
Owen.
Oh, now it gets fun. We're talking about kinds. Let's define
Yes.
that now. From the Answers in Genesis website, owned by Ken Ham himself, it says, "What is a kind? Often people are confused into thinking that a species is a kind, but that isn't necessarily so. A species is a man-made term used in the modern classification system. And frankly, the word species is difficult to define, whether one's a creationist or not. Here's the actual definition of a species, not from the Answers in Genesis website, just from a dictionary. A group of living organisms consisting of similar individuals capable of exchanging genes or interbreeding. So basically, it's a population that's capable of breeding with each other or sharing genes. That's really the bottom line. Just below that paragraph on the website, it says, dogs can easily breed with one another, whether wolves, dingoes, coyotes, or domestic dogs. When dogs breed together, you get dogs. So there's a dog kind. It works the same with chickens. There are several breeds of chickens, but chickens breed with each other, and you still get chickens. So there's a chicken kind. The concept is fairly easy to understand. Actually, that isn't completely accurate. Breeding a dog with a dingo produces a hybrid. You get some odd results from it a lot of the time, like breeding a donkey with a horse, what's called the F1 generation. In this case, you'd get a mule, which, being an F1 hybrid, is almost always sterile. So basically, they're saying if two creatures can breed with each other, it's a kind. But with species, they have to continue to breed even after the first generation, or they'll die out. That's the difference between a kind and a species.
The Bible tells us that we're all descendants of one man and one woman. Actually, the science of genetics confirms that there's only one human.
Okay. Just want to be extra clear in case you're taking your science notes from these wackadoos for some reason. Scientifically, there is no such thing as a kind. That's a biblical term. Just so you know, it's Bible science we're talking now. And that's fine. I mean, not fine, actually, because I don't even really believe that the people who wrote the Bible meant for it to be a scientific manual at all. But when he says kind, just understand that's because he needs there to be different definitions for everything, because he has no model for how things came to be that makes any sort of sense.
Race. And the Bible tells us there's been a global flood. We see billions of dead things buried in rock layers laid down by water all over the earth, and that tells us that there really has been a global flood, although we can't ultimately scientifically prove it.
Oh, that was an interesting bit at the end, even though we ultimately can't scientifically prove it. Does he realize he's full of shit? So he says DNA proves that we're a single race, but he's overlooking the fact that we can trace our DNA back to a mitochondrial Eve, which is the most recent woman to whom we're all related in an unbroken line of mothers. It goes back to between 100,000 and 170,000 years ago. Claiming it was 6,000 years ago is ridiculous. DNA doesn't prove the Bible is correct. He's ignoring the mass of evidence that humans are far more ancient than he's claiming. And about the flood, he says the Bible tells us there's been a global flood and we'd expect to see billions of dead things buried in rock layers laid down by water all over the earth. The problem with that is the fact that we can look through those rock layers and only find certain types of fossils in certain layers. So I know this is a gross simplification, but for visualization, imagine we have 15 rock layers across a big 60-mile patch of land. Each rock layer is about 20 feet deep. And in the 12th rock layer, the only thing we ever find are things like raptor fossils. In the 11th layer, we only ever find things like T-Rex fossils. 3rd rock layer, all we ever find are saber-toothed tigers. In the 1st rock layer, we find things like rabbits, deer, and horses. If we ever found a rabbit fossil in with the T-Rex fossils, or even a T-Rex fossil in with the raptor fossils, it would demand evolution be modified to account for it. That's called falsification. So yes, we do find dead things in rock layers all over the earth, but they're in clear, distinct layers. If there'd been a global flood, animals would be trying to swim to the surface, and we'd expect to find saber-toothed tigers, dinosaurs, rabbits, and deer all in the same layers. That is not what we find. So he's ignoring the evidence that doesn't support his worldview and accepting the evidence that supports it. People like Ken Ham, Eric, and Kent Hovind have a very specific set of beliefs and rationalizations. I don't think they represent all of Christianity, but they're pushing the line forward. They're advancing the argument for young earth creationism. They're normalizing it. They're gathering people up into one place who have PhDs and who claim that the earth was created in 6 days. It's allowing people to delude themselves. It's allowing people to look at their weak, flimsy arguments and say, look, I have a PhD on my side, even though it's a conspiracy theory, no more concrete than flat earth or the chemtrail conspiracy.
I want to talk about that specifically, the PhD thing, because when I say that these people have to know that they're lying in order to tell the lies that they tell. This is a perfect example. So there's some gal that works for Ken Ham, longtime employee of his. I don't remember what her name is, much less her specific area of expertise. So I'm going to make up an area of expertise to demonstrate my point. They will say, and now bringing in Dr. Deborah Rogers. I don't remember her name, but Dr. Deborah Rogers, a scientist, to explain this flood fossil theory. And Dr. Deborah Rogers will come in and repeat all the things that Ken Ham just said, but she'll use $3 words instead of $2 words. And you'll look up who is Dr. Deborah Rogers, and you'll see, oh, she has a doctorate in mathematics. Or, oh, look at that, she has a doctorate in astrophysics. Well, why is the astrophysicist talking about geology? Because she won't be tossed out on her butt from the circle of her peers for getting her field of expertise wrong. No, she has nothing to worry about because she is getting things wrong totally outside her field of expertise. Jordan Peterson made this mistake. He could have learned from the old-fashioned American con artists. You see, he got things wrong within his field of expertise when he was on social media being a bigot to trans people. And the board of people that certified him said, what you are saying is nonsense. And you're supposed to know it's nonsense, and if you don't know it's nonsense, then we made a mistake in certifying you. Because we would not certify someone who says these things that you say, because they are nonsense and we know this, and you are literally setting the practice back. You are harming the world with your nonsense. That's what the Ontario Board of Whatever said to Dr. Jordan Peterson. And here, when Owen says that Ken Ham hires doctors and Kent Hovind and Eric Hovind hire people with doctorates to come lend credibility to their scam, they do. And that's the rub. It's their doctorates in things that they will not talk about. Or if they do talk about their actual area of expertise, that is when you'll get the clips of them disagreeing with each other. Or that is when you'll get the clips of the experts being the most cagey and doing as little actual talking about the things they normally like to talk about as they can get away with. Just saying generic phrases like, well, there are a lot of questions, no doubt. There's a lot of questions that our field has left to answer. So yeah, what you offer is absolutely it could be considered a possibility, certainly. A non-answer like that. And that is how you know it is Whereas if it was if it was a person that was like, yeah, we're looking at the fossil records here. I have a doctorate in fossil recordology, whatever the hell it's called. That would be something, wouldn't it? Never happens.
People follow these guys religiously. Literally, religiously. I'm not using that as a colloquialism. They hang off of every word they say, watch all their videos, and eat it all up. It's poison. And if it weren't for the fact that there's no real rigid hierarchical structure behind it, I would say that young earth creationism is a cult. In my opinion, since it doesn't have a hierarchical structure enforcing beliefs with harsh social consequences attached, I have to say it's a cult-like mindset. Not a cult specifically. But if you guys haven't already, you must check out the YouTube channel Pelagia. He was a young earth creationist and he followed all of these guys. Coming out wasn't easy for him. Still isn't easy. But he's on the outside now and he covers Answers in Genesis, Kent Hovind, and others a lot. He's a watchdog. And I'm really glad he's here to keep an eye on these people because they need it.
I love that he promoted Apologia there. Also a great channel. Also leans heavily into the animation. And I would add on to that Aaron Ra, Modern Day Debate. Yeah. Get you some education on... If you're an atheist, listen to what the other side is up to. I would even suggest you not listen to only bad stuff. Like, occasionally, but I'll tell you what my palate cleanser is. I think I've mentioned it multiple times. Occasionally, you can just listen to David Suchet reading the Bible. It's a decent and pure thing. It's a good representation of Christianity. You can feel how you feel about whether these things are true. I happen to think they are not. The events of the Bible as described in the Bible, I don't even think that the miracles happened at all. I like to listen to it from time to time. I like to listen to I listen to David Suchet reading the phone book and reading the good book. Why not? Why not? But it would behoove you to get familiar, I think, with these folks if you are not already. And again, not only through people criticizing them, but do also listen to people who criticize them. Do a little of all. The United States is not a Christian nation. The world is not a Christian world. It's a human nation in a human world, of which a significant portion are Christians. And these people currently are operating under the belief that they're under attack. And my theory, more and more every day, is that they are right. They are. And we should help them. That's going to involve first convincing them that we are not the ones attacking them. We being everybody who's not in their specific church. Not other Christians attacking you. It's not atheists attacking you. And number two is to point to the con artists who abuse their sincere religious beliefs. And say, hey, go get them. There's your Judas in your crowd. It's Kent Hovind, Kent Hovind, Ken Ham, and it's Donald Trump. I'm actually thinking we should watch the update that he put out 3 years later because it's Kent Hovind specific, and that man is a treasure trove of legal woes and ridiculous cons. We'll get into that. I want to read some comments first and remind you, if you got a couple of bucks to spare, consider giving some to the GoFundMe, which is pinned in the description. That is for just a lady whose house burned down. That's simple. I don't know much about her other than one of our own knows this person. Verified it's a real person. verified her house really did burn, verified that she is just asking for $2,000. That's enough to put her up in a hotel for a while and make her not worry about where she will be the next day. Help her out if you can. And I'll tell you what, your old pal Jake will appreciate it. I'll sleep better. Oh, look at that. We got some fan funding. Franny P., welcome to the Friends of Doris, my friend. Good to see you. My word. And you've been around for a while, though, so I appreciate the upgrade to the Friends of Doris there. My word. By the way, I saw your recommendation for Beau of the Fifth column. Let's talk about how it's now the GOP hold on promotions. I actually had seen that video. I wasn't planning on doing anything with it because I forgot that I saw it. But I think we will. Not in this stream, because I think that's actionable. I think we can use that video as a way to make sure that these devils, the Republicans, do not exist as a party in 2025, or at least by the end of it. I want to get rid of them. I want them. I no joke, folks. I will be. I don't care if I go out like Ahab, as long as I drag this great white whale down to hell with me. We have got to get rid of the Republican Party. Time has come. Enough already. I'm going to properly tear into them soon. But I'm in a very chill place, and I choose to remain here with our good pal Owen. Let's read some comments. Bad Lefty, as a bad Catholic who has very sadly read the Bible cover to cover more than once, it's not an encyclopedia. It's closer to a novel full of allegories, in my opinion. Yeah, agreed. Also, it's so funny that there's it's very difficult to decide where to start reading if you are not if you're just getting into it. Wireless Mike, good to see you. Young Earth creationism is as much bullshit as ancient alien theory. Yeah, I think so. PNC Bio to Franny, I'll let that stay as a private conversation then. PNC Bio, apparently nobody told my teachers about this miraculous book. I had different classes in chemistry and physics, all kinds of stuff. I could have learned about kinds. Yeah, oh my gosh. The kinds thing. Again, I might get a tad bit intoxicated and then come on and hate watch one of these debates with you in the wee hours. Don't stay up for it. I will probably forget. But man, watching people try to defend their points. Like I hear all this. I've heard a lot of criticism of the idea of debating, and I won't have it. No, it's fine, and I understand where people are coming from, but I think it's good. I think in the struggle, in the nervous pressure of the moment, you learn who people really are and what people really think. And there's a reason that Sam Cedar is such a feared debater. He could debate you or me right now, on any of the topics he talks about on his show. And why is that? Because he has a deep understanding of them. And he doesn't need to pull specific numbers from here or there. He can talk about things in terms of their broad concepts. He has an actual understanding, as opposed to somebody like Kent Hovind, who needs to end every debate with a reminder that if you're right and I'm wrong, well, that means that's it when it's all over. And I don't think that's a very good way to be. And if I'm right and you're wrong, well, buddy, you're going to hell. Not exactly persuasive. Just a bunch of threats. Just a bunch of plays to emotion. Which, don't even get me wrong, there's a time and place for it, for sure. For sure. Sometimes you should play to emotion. But if that's all you can end your arguments with, if that's all you've got for swaying people, why are we listening? We can feel things on our own. We really can. Hovind. We really can. And we do. And you know that. And you're taking advantage of that. Scott Ward, there was a drought and man was forced to change their diets. This change caused their lives to be considerably more finite. Adam was the first to realize this. Our experiences shape our genetics. That's an interesting take. I will say this. There is a theory, and I'll go with you on this for a little bit. There is a theory that genuinely the genetics you pass on to your children do get affected by trauma. And even though I don't believe in the flood as presented in the Bible, I won't deny this. Set aside the drought thing. Let's skip to the flood thing, which would theoretically come later. Gilgamesh and about a dozen other ancient stories feature a flood not unlike that in Noah's Ark. I think probably based on a true story, as they say. But it got the ancient Hollywood take. So to your point, I would believe in a version. Like I could, let me say this, I could be convinced. I certainly could be convinced in a version of these things. But the guy we are talking about, just to be clear, he does not believe any of the things he's saying. I truly don't believe he is a Christian. I realize that's a heavy thing. But I mean, I believe he is a blasphemer. Kent Hovind is a blasphemer? Blasphemer? I don't know. Blasphemer. I think he is a wolf in sheep's clothing. I think he does not. I doubt he believes in God at all. But I certainly don't believe that he believes in the Bible. I don't believe he has any sort of faith. I think he is a pretender, and I think he takes advantage of people who do have sincere belief. And the more you see this guy, we're going to watch, you know what? We're going to watch a second round of Kent Hovind here. I personally have no limit for the amount of Kent Hovind content I can view. It's not like Tucker Carlson. Like there's not much more to learn with Tucker Carlson. It's an open and shut case. Like, yeah, he's a racist, and he tries to convince other people to be racist. But Kent Hovind, there's just something about him. I just can't get enough. But I will say this. My hate for Hovind is equal to that of my hate for Carlson. At least. Because I truly don't believe that he believes any of the things that he claims to. Snixabia, good to see you. Owen Morgan, the telltale atheist, although I think he's just telltale now. Bad left. I have heard this RE generational trauma, and I don't disagree. Yeah, it's interesting. It is interesting. Sinful Solutions says moneymaker. Yes, that is Kent Hovind. He is trying to make money off this stuff. Snixabia, he was raised in religion. Yes, that is true. Wireless Mike, there have been many floods, all in different parts of the world at different times, and they all seem like the entire world was flooded to the people who lived through them. Great point. If you lived in New Orleans in the time of Katrina, but it was ancient times, let's say, you really, I mean, it would seem like the whole damn world was flooded. Snixabia, Owen is not religious now. True. I'm just not sure if he rebranded his channel. I don't want to be handing out his old channel brand and doing him a disservice. Pinkerbell, it's really gross to prey on the most gullible people on earth. Yeah, and that's sort of the problem I have with it. It's not the gullibility is the thing. It's trust. That's the difference. The whole thing is based on faith, which is trust without reason. And you can feel how you feel about that. I will tell you up front, I personally don't think that's a good idea. But nonetheless, that is known. That's known by the practitioners of this religion that that's the deal. And their religious leaders then have an obligation to be real careful with that. And this is even worse. It's not just that he's careless with it, it's that he's targeting that. He's targeting their faith. It's like I'm not sorry to be crass. I'm going to warn you that I'm going to be crass though. It's like when you you go to the dominatrix and you give her your crumpled $500 and you agree upon a safe word, you put your trust in her hands. There's an understanding about what this relationship is going to be. You know that she's just supposed to put pressure on your nuts with the high heels until you say the safe word. But this dominatrix that Kent Hovind is, he just wants to hurt people. It's not pleasure and pain, it's just pain. Pain and taking your money. He didn't even listen to the safe word. So it's a fundamental breaking. That's, to me, what makes Kent Hovind so perverse, is that it's a breaking of the understood social contract there in a really grievous way. And I think maybe part of the reason that I get so mad about it is that nobody else seems to care. Not you. You all, obviously, you're here, you care. Not Johnny buying an apple at the grocery store, because it's not his job. But, authorities, I guess? Other religious authorities? I'm surprised that there aren't just, preachers outside of his door constantly protesting the heretic. Calling him a false prophet. He is literally. Kat Kerr is literally a false prophet. But these people don't seem to draw fire from the people that they should. So here we are bitching on the internet. And hopefully, we'll learn something and be able to use it for the greater good. Bad Lefty. I think prosperity gospel should be 100% illegal. Lock up Creflo Dollar, Copeland and Company. Yes. Agreed. PNC Bio. This man is reliving a deep truth. Interesting. Oh, Gypsy Mama's here. Good to see ya. Hello. And Shade Dragon. Good to see you. Yeah, Sinful Solutions. Why does Copeland need multiple planes? He doesn't. Gulf Coast Grit. Jake, you just described a transactional relationship. I found that religion still has that relationship. It's just not. It's just on a much longer timeline. Sure. And I'm very consciously trying to set aside whether or not I personally would take that deal. And even. Whether or not I would take that deal. Because it's not a conversation about that. This is about the behavior within a community of people that did take that deal and did say, this is for me. This is how I want to find my comfort in life. Or find my peace, my meaning, whatever. It's like abuser. I want to point at the motherfucker. I'm so sad that James Randi is not here, but in his stead, those who remain will do what we can. Well, I might have misspoke a little bit ago. Because it's not that nobody is doing anything. As a matter of fact, the courts have attended to Kent Hovind. It's just that they didn't do it for any of the stuff that I really cared about. They did it on account of the tax man being angry with him. Well, as we're talking about Kent Hovind, as I was just telling the live audience, as always, when the law caught up with a conservative Christian criminal, it wasn't because he hurts little people every day. It wasn't because he's convinced people not to take their cancer medication and instead give him $20 for sugar pills. It's not because he made a mockery of people's sincere religious belief. It's not because he has a fake doctorate and calls himself a doctor. No. When they finally got after Kent Hovind, it's because he cheated the tax man. He cheated the powerful. Now, to be fair, that also cheats us. But the point is, it wasn't until he messed with the money that powerful people were relying on. Just like Sam Bankman-Fried, who they would have let sell us $1 billion in useless stock. It wasn't until he sold that stock to the wealthy that there were problems. Well, the same thing with Kent Hovind. Continuing with our marathon of it's just videos, but still our marathon of Owen Morgan content. This video he put out, it's 2 years old, but it takes place 3 years after the last one we saw. It's an update on the legal woes Kent Hovind has, and will really do a lot to explain why you see less of him than you do Ken Ham. Or his son Eric, for whom I will remind you, stole Kent Hovind's scam.
The next article I wanted to take a look at is titled, Judge Dismisses Creationist $536 Million Lawsuit, Calling It Delusional. This is by Hemant Mehta on the Friendly Atheist website, so let's give it a read and see what it says. Last year, creationist Kent Hovind sued the U.S. government for more than $500 million. That lawsuit has now been tossed out of the courtroom after District Judge Thomas Kent Wetherell II, wow, that is a regal name, a Trump appointee,
judge name,
called it frivolous and delusional and adopted a magistrate's recommendation in full. That's surprising. A Trump appointee called it frivolous and delusional. I've covered Kent Hovind before, but it's been years. I covered him a lot in the early days when I was just starting YouTube. He has this video seminar series, okay? Let me give you a little bit of background on the guy. He did all of these video seminars, like videos, about evolution and God and the beginning of the universe and the Big Bang and all of this other shit. Everything. Every subject. Like 30 of them. 2 hours long each in some cases. Made a ton of money off of them and got super giga famous. Okay? He didn't come up with all of the common Christian arguments you hear today against evolution and against the Big Bang and stuff. He didn't necessarily come up with them, but he formed them out more and he popularized them. He's extremely charismatic and could be a cult leader if he wanted to be. I don't know if he is or not. I don't know much about the guy's personal life or what kind of group he forms around him, but he has
He took a whack at forming a cult. So did Ken Ham. Real quick, I'm really not going to interrupt this all that much because the longer Owen Morgan goes on with his YouTube channel, just the better the content gets. But both of these people, rather disturbingly, and Eric Hovind, tried to start what I consider to be cults. And the way they did it was through their employer-employee relationship. They would get people who believed in their cause hired on to their jobs, or to jobs within their ministries or whatever, the Creation Museum, so on and so forth. And then they would use that relationship to try to control these people, control them way beyond what a boss should be able to. And at the end, they never quite got it. At least so far, none of them have quite managed to form a cult. But I think, and again, this is an accusation which I am unable to prove, it's just my opinion. But I think it was a rather deliberate attempt. I think they knew what they were dealing with. They read the room and said, we got some culty beliefs here, and I want to cash in.
All of the character traits that a cult leader has typically. So I just wanted to listen to like a couple of minutes of his speech here. This is one of his video seminars that he released back in like the 90s and the 2000s, and then we'll discuss. A quick aside, before we actually watch the clip, I just wanted to talk about what happened to his seminar series. His son, Eric Hovind, took over his seminar series after Kent Hovind went to jail for structuring, I believe, tax evasion, tax structuring, a bunch of IRS-related things, because Kent Hovind believes you shouldn't have to pay taxes, and the IRS dinged him for it.
He shouldn't have to.
That's what happens. He went to jail for like 10 years. So Eric Hovind takes over the enterprise, and after his dad gets out of jail...
I just want to say I'm being literal. He believes he shouldn't have to. Not you. He. Big difference there. He answered only a handful of public questions about that very embarrassing scandal, but amongst them, it was clear that he did still believe that there ought to be roads, and he did still believe that the police ought to be paid for by the government. The only real objection he had to it was the fact that he, a person who is religious, had to pay taxes. Because in his mind, if you're Kent Hovind, you can just call any activity you do church work. Did you go to that dominatrix? Church work. Did you go to build a extension onto your house and add a pool? Church work. We're gonna baptize in the pool. Maybe, theoretically, we could. And also, I just like to have a swim and think about church work. So, no taxes.
He says, "Thank you, son, for running things in my stead. Now, can I have it back?" And Eric says, "Nope, I'm keeping it." And blocked Kent Hovind out of everything. He copied his dad's video seminar series word for word in some cases, and stole it from him. I mean, straight up fucking stole it from the guy. Now, I don't have any sympathy for him, honestly.
Kent, all right, he's going to talk. Let me just say, before you judge Eric Hovind too harshly, go ahead, actually, that's fine. But hate him for the right things, because the rumor mill is Kent Hovind, not a very good person to be the son of, it turns out.
Kent Hovind or Eric Hovind. They're both pieces of shit.
Yeah.
But that's low. What Eric did to his dad, that's pretty.
I'm just saying. Two things. Number one, Kent Hovind reportedly had it coming. Thing number two. Really, there is no higher form of flattery. Eric Hovind said with his actions, "Father, I see you. I mean, I really see you. And look how like you I am. What would you do?" you'd steal it. I actually think that was the most meaningful, tender father-son moment they could have, is the absolute theft of a con man's empire.
Pretty low, I've got to say. Anyway, I wanted to watch just a minute or two of this video series so you get an idea of who this guy is and his rhetoric and his style of debate and stuff. Let's watch.
If evolution is true, you could read Charles Darwin's book, page 170 or page 217. He said, hey, the death and struggle for life is a wonderful thing. That's how we get ahead. Okay? Now, the creation view says that...
I just want to point out what he's doing here. He's saying death and struggle is a good thing. That's how we get ahead. He's framing this in a very specific way. He quoted from a book about evolution. And by the way, I don't even know if that quote is true or real, actually from that book. It's something you need to look up because he lies constantly, like outright blatant lies. So don't trust literally anything this guy says. You need to look it up yourself. Everything. But aside from that, even if it is true, what he just quoted, it's completely taken out of context.
A flood about 4,400 years ago. Now, this would make a few predictions. Based on the idea that there was a universal flood, I think I could predict that the Earth will have hundreds of layers of strata. Floods automatically do that. Moving water sorts particles in all sorts of layers. You can get a jar of dirt, add some water to it, and shake it up and set it down, and in 20 seconds you'll have layers forming in your jar. Moving water automatically sorts particles. It's called hydrologic sorting. You engineers ought to know about that. I predict, based on the Bible teaching of the flood, that there will be billions of fossils, including coal and oil, found in those layers of sedimentary rock that we find all over the Earth. I predict that there will be huge canyons and deltas showing evidence of rapid, massive erosion.
He's making predictions here, supposedly based off of the Bible. It's not actually based off of anything. He's just describing things that he sees, or that everybody sees. Billions of fossils, including...
Point of clarity, he's not actually making predictions. Owen will break it down and do a good job of explaining this, but I disagree on one point, and it's my show. So he's not making predictions, but he is like one of those bugs that looks like a different kind of animal. He is taking the shape of predictions. So the reason Kent Hovind is fixated on predictions and predicting things is funny enough, because science actually does place its value largely on the ability to make predictions. That's how you can tell if your science is good. Have you figured out what's happening? Well, a good way to know if you've figured out what's happening is to figure out what'll happen next. That's a major point of contention between actual scientists and people who are trying to scam others with the Bible. They'll say, what you have said, sir or ma'am, is I can't take that information and make a prediction with it. Whereas with my model of how the universe works, not only can we make a prediction, in fact, we rely on those predictions for our cell phones to work and our satellites to work and all of that. So that is why Kent Hovind is in this rant saying, I can make a prediction and it looks like this, and I would predict that. And what he's actually doing is taking the things that we know to be true. There are different layers of sediment. There are bones here and there and blah, blah, blah. He's taking the things that we already know to be true, and he's just coming up with a different story for how they got there, and he's calling that a prediction. And he is doing that not because he thinks it'll convince you or me, but because it will insulate his audience from the kind of arguments he knows they will hear going forward. He knows they will hear from others out in the world. This is the same scam that MAGA pulls. The same scam that MAGA uses. Their arguments, the things you hear on Fox, the things you hear on OAN, they're not meant to sway you or me. They are meant to insulate their listeners from the arguments you and I will make. That is why we need to be very smart about the arguments you and I make. That's why we should be familiar. I hate where this is going, because I'm realizing I may have to start watching this stuff, and I don't have much patience for it. But we have to be familiar with the arguments that they will be braced for, and the ways that they will be braced for them. And looking at this subculture is incredibly valuable, because you can expand it. You can take the lessons learned from here and add it to the larger pool of people that are in the MAGA cult, that are in the QAnon crazies. Also understand how this works as a business. They get this insulation from your arguments, from your begging of them not to go down this dark path. And they feel that's where they get the dopamine kick, the reward. I was braced. I was prepared. I had something to say when they said their smart-sounding something. I had something that baffled them and made them angry. And this pleases me because it insulated me against having to feel foolish. And then they will go back. They will go see more Kent Hovind. They will say, I want to be ready for the next thing. What arguments are out there that I'll hear next that I should be preparing for tonight? That's the very thing that's happening with Newsmax, OAN, Fox. That's the very thing that's happening when people listen to Marjorie Taylor Greene and Trump. And during all their speeches, when they rattle off their nonsense, that's what they are giving those people. That is why we keep having these problems over and over again. And that's why you and I keep thinking these people are dumb, or treating these people like they're dumb instead of conned, or they're evil instead of conned, because we keep thinking we present you time and time again with the truth, and you choose not to see it. And that is true, but understand that they have been braced for what we were going to say already. They are following a script. We are not. Our job is to get them off that script and understand that they will flee to that script again as soon. The moment they feel threatened, they will flee back to that script. They will go to the core of that script. The things that shut down all conversation. The basic, oh wait, this person I'm talking to is bad and I am good, and they are worldly and I am holy. And if you manage to do it, if you get just a little foothold, understand that it's precious. But use it. Don't be afraid to use it. Find unique ways to talk to these people. Learn where their script is so you can avoid the script. Keep them off that script. Keep them having a real conversation with you where they need to listen to you to understand what is going on. If you are repeating phrases they've heard, they don't need to listen to you to follow the conversation. Bear that in mind. Let's watch some more Owen.
Putting coal and oil in the ground. This last one says huge canyons and deltas showing evidence of rapid erosion. Not necessarily rapid erosion, but he's just describing things that we see. And then he's saying the Bible predicts it. These are predictions from the Bible. These aren't predictions from the Bible. Guy's completely full of shit. He lies constantly. He fudges the numbers. He twists things around. One of my original videos, one of the first 5 videos that I ever released, was about Kent Hovind talking about the moon spinning around the Earth, right? And the moon moves away from the Earth at a rate of like, I don't know, 1.5 inches per year or something. I don't remember what it is. It's something like that. And he said, so that means it was closer to the Earth, 3 billion years ago. Scientists say the Earth is 4.5 billion years old. If the moon was moving away from the Earth at like 1.5 inches a year or whatever it is, over 4.5 billion years, that means the moon would have been like inside of the Earth. That's not true. His numbers were false. His calculations were false. Everything about it was false. And in this video that I released, like video number 5, like April 2016, when I first started YouTube, I went through all of the math and pulled out all of the equations and did them, figured it out. And he just straight up lied about it. There was nothing correct about what he said. That's his strategy. He likes to throw out a bunch of claims and questions all at once, and the claims that you don't refute or the questions that you don't answer, you lose. You couldn't answer those claims or questions, so you failed. He won that round. That's his strategy. He wants it to look that way. He's a very talented rhetorician and a talented debater. He's a piece of garbage, and he lies constantly. That's his strategy. So anyways, let's listen to a couple more seconds of this just out of curiosity.
I predict there will be legends of this worldwide flood found in cultures all over the world. That's a prediction based on the biblical view. Biblical view of creation is certainly scientific. It makes predictions, okay? I predict there will be petrified trees in the vertical position, extending through all of these layers.
You know what's particularly fascinating about this guy, too? The deeper you go into his belief system, the crazier it gets. It's not just like he tries to come up with some explanations for why we have, like, millions of different types of species in the world. He doesn't try to explain how we got there. He takes it a step further, and he endorses really batshit crazy conspiracies or crazy ideas like Bible code. If you guys have ever heard of Bible code, it's the idea that you can take like the first letter in the second word of the 5th verse of every chapter of the Bible, and you put them all together, and it'll predict, Hitler or something. So he believes in Bible code. That's one of the things, or he used to at the very least. I have video of him talking about it. And also, he used to believe in something called canopy theory, where he had this idea that there was a giant ice canopy that surrounded the earth, right? And when Noah's flood happened, the ice canopy that completely enclosed the earth, God melted it, and that's where all the rain came from. And before God melted the canopy, it was a super oxygen-rich environment, which is why we had gigantic animals back then. It's just completely disconnected from reality, like all of his ideas. And the deeper into it you go, the crazier it gets. Like I said, he has like 30 seminar videos or something, and it's like 60 hours worth of videos or something, right? I watched all of them, every one of them. Maybe it was like closer to 30 hours. I don't remember now. Anyways, I sat there for a week and watched them, all of them, because I was looking for cohesion between his theories. I wanted to see if the things that he was saying linked together. With a lot of flat earth claims, the ideas that they propose to the problems that they have in their theory or their hypothesis, they can explain away little problems. But when you bring all of the problems together, none of the solutions fit together. Like they all fit like broken puzzle pieces. You can't make a cohesive explanation for why the earth is flat. It doesn't work. I mean, you can explain this problem over here, that problem over there. You can't bring it into a cohesive theory. And that I wanted to see if that was the case with Kent Hovind also.
So that's a big, I would say that is, in fact, the core of what makes me think a lot of these people are con artists. You'll see some, cult-eyed people on the internet. You know that look, the Haley Bop look. You'll see some of those folks who lack a cohesive theory, or who seem to understand that their explanations don't work for the individual problems when put together. But they're not churning out big business with this stuff. It's your uncle on Facebook. But when it gets to the level of Kent Hovind, where they're claiming to try to teach people, or that rather they are trying to teach people, just wrong, that lack of a cohesive theory, a theory that doesn't contradict itself. If you were an honest person, at a minimum, you would not require somebody else to bring that up. You would bring it up. You'd say, a problem we have with this theory that we're working on right now in our labs is that blank and blank contradict each other. And we're trying to solve for that contradiction now. Here are the theories we have that we are working that might explain it. Whereas Kent Hovind, of course, would do no such thing. He chooses to ignore it, and when somebody brings this sort of stuff up in a debate, he just talks until the time is out. And it's because he does not believe these things. I truly feel that is the case. I suspect that is the situation here.
As it turns out, as far as I can tell in his video seminar series, his beliefs are very cohesive. But he does that by lying. On the granular level, he just straight up doesn't tell the truth. If you fabricate things, just make shit up whole cloth, you can...
Yeah, let me clarify. Kent Hovind is a different cat from a lot of these other people in that he does seem to understand world building better. I just want to clarify and not really correct Owen Morgan here, just something I've noticed in the years since I first saw this video. He changes his little explanations all the time. His little adapter kits for how his theories work together. So he does at least acknowledge when there are these problems. But he'll come into one debate saying, oh, it's because of this, and we've always thought it was because of this. And then he'll go into another debate and answer the same question, oh, it's because of that, and we've always thought it was because of that. He's a liar.
Can make a story that fits together. Let's keep reading the article by Hemant Mehta about the judge that dismissed his case. Some background is helpful here because where the hell did Hovind get that number from? And who knew creationists could count that high? He was basically seeking revenge on the government for convicting him in 2006 of not paying income taxes, something he bragged about both privately and publicly, only to play dumb in the courtroom, and structuring bank transactions so that he would always withdraw just under $10,000 at a time, since anything above that would have required reporting by the bank. He always insisted he didn't have to pay taxes because his money and property belonged to God, not the government. There's some really crazy shit from back in the day that he released. Some really crazy videos of him talking shit about the IRS. It's pretty entertaining, actually. For his crimes, Hovind was sentenced to a decade in jail, while his then-wife sent to prison for a year. He got out in 2015 after 8 years. He and his wife divorced a year later. I gotta be honest, going to jail will change you, especially for 8 years. I can't believe she waited for him, but it changes you. Jail is not a good place in the United States, and we need to improve conditions in there, honestly. In addition to the prison time...
I have met very few people who have been to a U.S. jail or prison who have not had that opinion. I don't know how many more people we need to have come out the other side of that torture chamber and tell us that it does not do the thing it's supposed to do. It is just a place for torture before we change that. But hey, Reason number 7,946 why we should have progressives in the House and Senate and, God willing, inshallah, the White House.
Time, Hovind had to give up 10 properties, including his precious Dinosaur Adventureland. But when the government tried to sell those off, Hovind's co-defendant and church trustee Paul John Hansen was given a separate prison sentence for criminal contempt for getting in the government's way. Hovind avoided punishment for that one. In short, Hovind was criminally prosecuted for his refusal to play by the rules and for constantly playing the Christian persecution card, even when it made no sense. He basically dragged everyone in his orbit down with him. If you've seen his name pop up in the past couple years, it's because he created...
Who does that sound like? Openly defied authorities, bragged about it, thought he could never be caught. Built up a little con man empire. His family, when he went to the clink, picked it apart and stole it from him. I'm just saying we might have some predictive, we might have a predictive model here for what's going to happen to the Cheeto in chief. I can't think of a better insult. The orange Mussolini. No, that was somebody else's. Anyway, Trump. We have a pretty good predictive model for what will happen to Trump. When faced with actual judges, when faced with an actual courtroom, all this rhetorical nonsense that they have built their crimes off of, stop working. It really is something that makes me appreciate the court system. Not the other end of it. Not the other end of it. Not the prison system. But the court system, there are aspects of it I do like. I don't like that it's pay to play, but I do like that lies don't fly there.
A brand new, very low budget recreation of Dinosaur Adventureland. A child drowned there last year, and I remember I covered that story on the podcast. If you're curious, you can search for that video. Hovind also releases daily live streams in which he spouts insane procreationist talking points, like when he argues that various food items disprove evolution. Back to the lawsuit. According to the complaint he filed last summer, Hovind and Hansen decided to go after, you ready for this? The government. The judge in Hovind's two cases, the U.S. attorneys who prosecuted them, an IRS agent, and Hovind's own attorney from 2006 by saying they violated the plaintiff's 1st, 4th, 5th, 6th, 9th, 10th, 13th, and 14th Amendments. The men also said the defendants were imposing law illegally on land that did not belong to the U.S. This is known as a sovereign citizen argument. The lawsuit said that because the government went after Hovind and his ministry, creation science, evangelism, his life had been ruined. Here's a quote. CSE lead speaker Hovind was generally invited to speak at approximately 30 churches worldwide weekly on the average in 2006, but in 2020 it is 0. Hovind is striving daily to regain his and like ministry's popularity since his...
Do you think the sovereign citizen fad is going to go away? That's my question for you. Do you think the sovereign citizen thing will go away? I do notice, just like they were always terrified of happening to the kids, these destructive fads sort of sweep the ultra-conservative communities. And of late, sovereign citizens, really more in the last decade, in the 2010s, that was a huge thing. It's still around. You still get the occasional dingbat saying, "Oh, I'm a sovereign citizen, so you can't arrest me." Ha ha! What's happening? Why am I? Oh, I'm getting arrested. You're violating my something. I think it's been there's been enough public embarrassments with it that it might go away. Let's hope that constitutional sheriffs are next, because that is terrifying.
Release on August 7, 2015. Hovind, soon after being greeted at home to a notice of divorce, forced removal by his own son with aid of police to get off the once CSE ministry land, ending with close to full separation from all his family members and immediate family, including all his beloved 5 grandchildren. It's actually kind of sad. I'm not a part of the family. I don't know. I'm not close to them. I don't know anything about it. Hovind is a genuinely terrible person, but, you know, the dude's life was in shambles. And that's pretty fucking sad. I'm having trouble feeling pity for him because he lies so much intentionally like that. But that's pretty sad. What his son did to him was pretty fucking messed up. Let's keep reading. This is Hemant Mehta speaking. Guess what? In 2020, I also spoke at Zero Live events. It's almost like there was something happening, but Hovind made no mention of that. More to the point, he doesn't have some magical right to speak everywhere. The lawsuit also said Hovind was falsely imprisoned, the victim of religious persecution.
Mars Falcon, why are you asking me? Am I being detained?
Just as practiced in communist China, quote unquote, subject to unlawful seizures and more. There were 60 separate counts. There was also...
I'm sorry, I didn't read the first part. Let me, it's already ruined, but let me go over that ruined joke. How many sovereign citizens does it take to... Okay. Does it... Just the worst. You see, this is why I want to hire talent for being in front of the camera. One day we're going to get there. Try number 4. Mars Falcon. How many sovereign citizens does it take to change a light bulb? Why are you asking me? Am I being detained?
So this attachment to the lawsuit suggesting the amount of proposed damages that he hoped to recover. $536,041,100. That's what he wanted. That page claimed that Hovind was owed money that amounted to whatever his ministry would have made each year between 2004 and 2020, assuming a conservative 12% growth rate. His ministry took in $2.5 million in 2006. So by 2020, he says he would have made $12.22 million had the government not interfered with him. Altogether, that comes out to $90 million. $3,500 per day of false imprisonment, which comes out to $10,860,000.
So he had a really, really high estimation of how much money he was going to make based on probably, let's say, Mar-a-Lago numbers. Pinkerbell, Hannah Reloaded on YouTube goes over sovereign citizens and other conspiracy types. And I am going... Oh, there we go. And I am going to follow that channel. I am now subscribed. Thank you for the recommendation. Let's finish watching this fella.
$500. That's absurd. That's not even realistic in any stretch of the imagination. $300 per month for commissary and phone privileges while in jail. That's a total of $30,000. Seized property valued at approximately $3 million. All the emotional distress and anguish and punitive damages and financial damages, which amounts to hundreds of millions of dollars. There is a number if you're falsely imprisoned, like, you know, you're put in prison and then they find out later that you were completely 100% innocent. There is a number that they'll give you, a daily number. I forget what it is. Maybe it's $70,000 per year or something. So if you spend 10 years in prison and you weren't supposed to be there, you get $700,000 at the end of it, or something like that. Don't quote me on that. I don't remember what it is, but there is an actual figure. $3,500 per day is completely ridiculous. Nobody would get $3,500 a day. That's basically $1.3 million per year. Nobody would get $1.3 million per year for being falsely imprisoned. You do get some money for that, or you can. It's not $1.3 million. This is back to Hemant Mehta. In sum, the total proposed damages came out to $536 million, more than $500 million. In April, however, his attempt hit a major roadblock when U.S. Magistrate Judge Michael J. Frank recommended that the entire case be dismissed. Frank's 26-page ruling said Hansen lacked standing to sue over some of his claims, that the statute of limitations prevented the men from suing even when they had standing, and that even if that wasn't a problem, a criminal like Hovind isn't allowed to sue the prosecutors, judge, government, or an IRS agent just because he's unhappy with how the case turned out. And earlier this week, Judge Witherell adopted that recommendation. Quote, the objections...
In other words, the thing to do about this is have a court case, which we already did, and you were found guilty. Sit back down, sir.
Demonstrate the frivolous and delusional nature of this suit when, among other things, they assert that Plaintiff Hovind and his ministry were beyond the jurisdiction of the U.S., and that the obligation to pay income taxes is tantamount to being conscripted into involuntary servitude as a tax collector for the U.S. He also dismissed the lawsuit with prejudice, meaning Hovind can't file it again. Oh shit! Hovind always deserved to be laughed out of the courtroom. Now he has been. Couldn't have happened to a worse person. As far as I can tell, Hovind hasn't mentioned his loss during his daily live stream yet. There's virtually no chance he would win an appeal, but if anyone's dumb enough to try anyway, it's him. What else has the guy got going on? I would be willing to bet he's going to try to appeal. Because what else does he have going on in life, really? He's just going to sit there and chill and keep on pushing these lawsuits through. Why the fuck not? The guy was banking on his charismatic personality carrying him through the courtroom probably 15 years ago when he got arrested originally for.
The guy was banking on his charismatic personality getting him through the courtroom. And how did that turn out? Do you want to know why I'm not too terribly concerned about Donald J. Trump? There it is. Don't get me wrong. I'm concerned about him in all areas, except whether or not he will be found guilty. He will give the courts no choice because he is of the exact same, he's cut from the exact same cloth as Kent Hovind. And their behavior is pretty much identical. And you can see here how their attitudes about life and the way it works translate to a courtroom. Not very well.
Tax evasion, and probably just now too.
Oh, look at that.
And it didn't work. A courtroom is supposed to be a crucible in which you burn away irrelevance and lies, and you're left with objective truth. Doesn't always work out that way. But that's supposed to be the idealist's goal for the United States courtroom, right? In fact, it almost never works out that way. But people see straight through Hovind's, happy, smiley, charismatic personality and his arguments that have holes all through them. I mean, he can sit there and lie all he wants to an evangelical audience, but it's different in the courtroom. Does not work that way. And I guess he's learning that the hard way.
Owen Morgan, a.k.a. Telltale, ladies and gentlemen. I find this person very useful for understanding a community which is of concern now. It's useful in understanding the mentality of the marks. It's also incredibly useful in understanding the mentality, the strategy, and the business of the con artists who take advantage of the marks. Kent Hovind is the pioneer of this particular scam, this particular flavor of scam. Donald Trump is a practitioner of it. He just naturally fell into it. And even though I'm quite sure Donald Trump is not aware of Kent Hovind, even though I'm quite sure Donald Trump is not modeling himself intentionally off Kent Hovind, I think Donald Trump will behave exactly like Kent Hovind. It also means that there will be another one, and another, and another, until we learn to deal with these people generally, until we develop as a society an immunity from for this scam, because we're used to seeing it. When somebody shows up in your town with a cart full of snake oil and says, "Say, fella, I've got a cure for you," But you don't know what I'm sick with. Doesn't matter. Common cold, I've got the cure, snake oil. But I've got stage 4 cancer. Doesn't matter. Throw away your cancer meds. Stage 4, seriously? I bet it doesn't matter. Take this. You know what? Let's do a different one. I've got stage 2 cancer. It's very treatable. No worries. Throw away your cancer meds. Here's snake oil. We know. We know what to do. We put that person on a rail, and we run them out of town. We tar and feather them and toss them in a ditch on the outskirts of town and say, don't come round these parts no more. We need to develop that intrinsic understanding as a society. If we don't want to be harmed by this anymore, then the thing to do is make it common knowledge what this scam is and how this scam works and how it looks and sounds, so people just smell it when it's in the room. Speaking of, I'm going to go burn one down. Thank you for hearing me rant about Kent Hovind and checking out Owen Morgan with me. Let's read some comments. Scott Ward, Trump is mentioned in 2 Theologians, chapter 2, verse 3. I think we talked about that. Oh, yes. Apostasy, defection. The apostasy of the early Christian church, the Antichrist, the devil. Yeah. Sinful sins. LOL depends. Oh, I might have missed that. Soul Life. Opioids was the best snake oil and cheese. Yeah. Yeah, opioids was for sure the next version of that. And the problem is that scam got upgraded because they included our doctors in it. We really should toss a couple of those billionaires in prison for the rest of their days. Scott Ward, you should read The Journeyman by Erskine Caldwell. It's about a grifter preacher. All right, highlighting. Okay. Noted. Thank you. Gulf Coast Grit. Ketchup on eggs should be a federal felony. I gotta tell you, I've been getting into salsa on eggs recently, and I'm scared. I've never had eggs anyway except for plain with maybe salt and pepper. But I like salsa now, and I look in the mirror and I don't recognize myself. Scott Ward, the son of perdition. Yeah. Gypsy Mama, jeez, yes. Opioids have their uses. A boo-boo is not one of them, says Shade Dragon. Yeah, a wee boo-boo, indeed. Gulf Coast Grit, salsa is permitted. Well, thank you. I still need to do some soul searching, though, because I tell you, folks, I was confident in how I enjoyed my eggs. I had Runaway Bride standards set. I knew who I was, and now my world's all a tizzy. I enjoyed this very much. Thank you for joining me and watching some Telltale. Links in the description if you are interested in seeing more from that channel. You can check them out. Or if you'd just like to hear the videos without me flapping my gums. Hey, if you got a couple of bucks, toss them to Dee Dee. The pinned comment, yeah, is for her GoFundMe. She's not looking for a terribly ambitious amount of money. She is just trying to rebuild her life after her home got burned down. And oh my gosh. Well, in the time we've been here, we've had 3 more donations, and she's gone from $1,200 to $1,330. Y'all, I assume you had something to do with that. Thank you. In the meantime, before I wait, what am I even talking about? It's Saturday. Enjoy your weekend. This has been WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. I'll see you next time. My name's Jake. wait a minute. Soul Life at the beating the buzzer there, gifting membership for what you can do. Soul Life, thank you so much. I appreciate you, man. Keeping this channel going, I surely do recognize that it does not happen without you. It just doesn't. So thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. I'll see you next time.